Well, we're nearing the end of another year that social media tells us was bad, but the mall tells us was good. And in that time, I've made quite a bit of progress as a YouTuber, reviewing tons of interesting shows, and gaining a couple of fans who are interested in what I'll review next. Well, right now, I've gone back to all the shows I've given proper reviews to this year, ranked my favorite episodes from each of them, and put them into a mega list of the best stuff I've seen this year. Only one pick per series, however, so some of the less spectacular series have a chance to shine, and so you newcomers to the channel can see what I've covered so far. Without further ado, let's begin. Here's the best episodes I've reviewed this year. Number 13, King Mario of Camelot, the Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Just like an 80s cartoon to peek at the second episode, if you couldn't tell from this killer pun, this episode is loosely based on the tale of King Arthur, with Mario pulling a golden plunger from a bath and having the potential to become King of Camelot. Only one complication: despite the kingdom's name, the king has to be fit and refrain from eating Italian food. Most of the show's jokes were about plumbing and Italian food, but nothing's really changed, so sure. There are a few things that make this episode better than the average, and I mean very, very average episode. Like this Brooklyn wizard Mervyn that helps the gang out, Luigi helping out, some level of competence being put into the Mario Koopa sword fight, and Mario's odd glee at being trapped in a dungeon and saying things could always be worse. It's such an oddly sadistic joke compared to the rest of the whole Mario franchise, and that's why I like it so much. Number 12, Mass Transit Trouble, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. It's quite a shame this episode had to be constantly taken out of circulation over the years due to its emphasis on terrorism, because not letting kids know about terrorism and its implications will surely help them deal with it well later in life. I think this episode's such a great showcase of the silliest Sonic cartoon because it, like the character, is fast. Robotnik's henchmen infiltrate the main transport hubs in Mobius, causing Sonic to chase them out, only for him to go back to these hubs when he finds out they've planted bombs there. They're still profoundly annoying, sure, but I have to give them all props for fooling Sonic in some way. And the writer, whichever one that may be, for keeping me invested in this crazy race against time from start to finish. Number 11, So You Think You Can Dance Near the Stars, Brotown. Brotown is easily the most oddball show I've covered this year. I only did so to give off some national pride since this is New Zealand's only animated sitcom, and I was grateful to see it poop out the occasional good episode and end on a high note. Essentially, the two main parents on the show, Pepello and Tapili, enter a dance show and hit it off, not knowing that the increased romance is because Pepello's taking ecstasy. Meanwhile, Sione has to deal with both getting over his old crush when he falls in love with his dance partner, and the prospect of having to live with Valet and Valea if these two chubby bunnies get married. Even though this is a sweet episode that ties up some loose ends, it's still got that Brotown weirdness that can't be overlooked, with some stuff that only us New Zealanders can really get.
If you buy Kiwi, we've got it made!
Oh yeah, stuffing celebrities in cardboard boxes was an ad campaign back then. Before I get to the next pick, yes, there's a Brotown movie coming out, new hardcore Brotown fanbase I've created, yes, I'll be at the premiere, and yes, I'll be signing autographs. Number 10, Sven Hoek, the Ren Stimpy Show. Speaking of show-exclusive weirdness, Ren Stimpy was not only the pioneer of gross-out and surreal humor in animation, it was the pioneer. It can feel outdated at points, which is why Sven Hoek always succeeds in getting me back into the show. The plot isn't much. Ren's German cousin Sven comes to visit, only for it to be revealed that he's just as f***ed in the head as Stimpy, and they act like idiots for 10 minutes. It isn't much, but it gets you through what you'd expect from the show, weird for the sake of weird, hideous close-ups, gay subtext, the works. And it all culminates in Ren having a very unsettling nervous breakdown where he calmly describes all the ways he's going to mutilate the two. Even though his voice actor's a scumbag, I have to give some credit for this being a jaw-dropping display of acting through animation. What I'm saying is, this should be everyone's first Ren and Stimpy episode. And if you don't think this show's for you, ah well.
So, you whizzed on the electric fence, didn't you?
Number 9, The Battle of the Badge, Pokémon. Although Pokémon has never been the deepest or darkest franchise, it's had some characters and ideas that can give you a 1,000-yard stare. In the case of this episode, the leader of Team Rocket, Giovanni, is revealed to be the Viridian City gym leader, and Gary can't beat his mysterious new Pokémon. I'm not watching the movies alongside the show, but I don't think it takes a genius to figure out that this is a Mewtwo. But even when Giovanni leaves, there's still some intense stuff like Team Rocket having to take over the gym and rigging it so Ash feels all the pain his Pokémon feel. That's such a brutal twist to his last Kanto gym battle, and I like how it gives him the motivation to beat them. There's some silly stuff here for sure, like Togepi going off on his own and everyone chasing after it, but this episode showed that one of the biggest kids franchises on the planet could cater to more serious action fans, which is one of the reasons it's still so popular today. Number 8, Win, Lose, and Kaboom! The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. I love the Jimmy Neutron TV movies, especially the later ones. If you can get past the show's general absurdities, I don't blame you if you can't, it isn't for everyone. You've got high-stakes adventures that push its characters and concepts to their full potential. I have to give Win, Lose, and Kaboom! The edge over the others though, for its psychotic parody of reality shows, since those were in vogue at the time, and strong themes of teamwork and trust that gradually give the kids more luck with the challenges. I mean, whenever they make you useful, they've won me over completely. It's also a really dark movie, but always has a laugh to give you. The genocidal host of the show is voiced by Tim Allen. In this nightmare with all the parents as creepy puppets, they're trying to give their kids ice cream. I love how this can unify both sides of the Jimmy Neutron fandom, those who prefer the wackier tone of the early episodes, and the more mature tone of the later episodes.
Hello, Ed boys! Many doors yet?
Number 7, 1 + 1 = Ed, Ed, Edd, and Eddy. Even though Ed, Edd, and Eddy isn't a show I'll be rushing back to anytime soon, it's hard to exaggerate how much effort was put into the show, and when they had a good original idea, they went all out with it, like in this case. It starts out simple enough, with the Eds becoming interested in learning how stuff works, but as the questions they pose and the things they find become more surreal and esoteric, they end up breaking the reality of the cul-de-sac in all sorts of ways. It always felt like a special occasion when they left suburbia already, but now they're leaving the show's universe behind and almost break out of the fourth wall itself. They get so close to learning that they don't even exist. It's kind of miraculous when Double D loses all his notes and things go back to normal. There certainly are many doors, and the folks behind this episode picked the most entertaining paths feasible. Number 6, Escape from Cluster Prime, My Life as a Teenage Robot. Given this series' short time on the air, it's no surprise its only TV movie sticks out as much as it did. After a battle with a ton of collateral damage, Jenny feels rejected by the town of Tremerton and stumbles into the planet of her sworn enemies, the Cluster. There, she makes friends with some of the local teenage robots, but runs into problems on account of the fact that she's treated like a demon there, needs to save people like back on Earth, and the Earth itself has fallen under the rule of the Cluster. But that gives Brad and Tuck some time to form a resistance and be bad butts, for just a while to be fair, though I wouldn't have their roles be any different. I'm also satisfied with how dense this movie is and how many twists and turns it has that all feel genuine and move the story forward. Throw in some of that colourful, stylized animation that this show aces, and this is another win-lose-kaboom situation. It's the flag upon Mount Teenage Robot.
Try millennial? I'm doing my best!
Number 5, Eyes on the Prize, The Critic. The Tuca and Birdie of its time, a spiritual companion piece to the animation titan that ended too soon, the New York exploits of Jay Sherman were hardly as raw, emotional, and offbeat as when he lost his job as a film critic from poor ratings and creative burnout. There's a good chance that you, the viewer, aren't in the entertainment industry or a critic, but I bet and hope you can still feel invested in Jay's crisis and his struggle to climb his way back to the top. But the way he does this is with one of the best speeches in television history.
If you stop going to bad movies, they'll stop making bad movies.
Uh-oh, the jig is up.
It's hard to say if not seeing a bad movie can change the future of cinema these days, but I can only hope. Anyways, Jay here is still a quirky protagonist, but they go the extra mile here in making him smart and talented, thus the happy ending where he gets rehired is well earned. If the episode shines, just don't miss it. Number 4, Testing 1 2 3, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. I've already talked about this episode a few times, so I'll keep this one brief. Rainbow Dash has trouble studying for an exam on the history of the Wonderbolts, that group she wants to join, so she and her friends go through all kinds of learning methods before settling on one that Rainbow's unknowingly been using her whole life. So if you're ever having trouble retaining knowledge about pi or something, just remember that these adorable ponies have several study methods that'll help you out in the long run. This is a very helpful, very entertaining, and very sweet example of why Friendship is Magic could be for everyone. Number 3, Jack vs. Aku, Samurai Jack. Just as the original run of Samurai Jack was wrapping up, we got this episode where Aku admits he's getting bored with sending dumb minions to kill Jack and battles that go back to square one. Give it 48 years, buddy. So he and Jack decide to have a plain old man-to-man fight, no evil powers, no magic swords, Just fan service. Hey, I don't swing that way, I like this episode for other reasons, but good for you if this regularly makes it into your dreams. What makes this, the simplest possible plot, Jack vs. Aku, so fun for me is that it isn't as gloomy and serious as Samurai Jack can tend to be. It's going to town with the fight and all the jokes they can make out of it. At the same time, it never feels immature, it's grounded in a very gripping, dramatic brawl, where Aku breaks the rules endlessly until it turns into a scuffle that he's on the receiving end of. Did I mention Aku's great in this? Because Aku's great in this. Number 2, Knock It Off, the Powerpuff Girls. I knew I'd like this episode when they revealed the villain's name was Dick Hardley, and he manages to be one of the creepiest characters Cartoon Network's ever broadcast. He essentially stumbles onto the professor's invention of superpowered girls and immediately wants to squeeze every penny he can out of them. So he gets them to grab some Chemical X for him so he can make some more Powerpuff Girls, but they don't turn out so good, and they get even worse once they're mass-produced. Any interpretation you can have about this plot works. It is about bootleg merchandise. It is about corporate takeover of a once heart-filled property. It can be about a father who sells his children out for his own monetary gain. Knock It Off has some rather unsettling subtext, which culminates in whatever this is, but come on, where else can you really go? And it allows for an emotional sacrifice and climax and rebirth and all that, which reminds us why the Powerpuff Girls was such a great show in the first place. Its heart. Number 1, Wacky Deli, Rocko's Modern Life. If you ever want to show a casual observer of animation what it's like to be in the industry, show them this episode. Rocko is a very satirical show already, but when they took it upon themselves to mock and ridicule the executive, creative, and public struggles of animators and artists, they did it in a way that didn't feel like whiny projection. Wacky Deli is a clever, intricate window into what makes animation such a frustrating business, both back in the 20th century when one guy usually took all the credit, and today where big fan bases can overwhelm creatives. The first half of the episode, The Road to Wacky Deli being greenlit, serves as self-deprecation for Rocko's writing room, with them basically saying, yeah, we get into fights over stupid jokes and stay up all night yelling about cartoons. The second half, I think, is a little more resonant, as it looks further into the life of the show's creator and how his popularity is ruining his life. We have to remember that the people behind our favorite shows are people at the end of the day. People who probably aren't the best with huge crowds and communities, yes, but people who have entertained us as children, and we should owe respect to them in more ways than loud love. It's great to see the cartoon community stronger than ever, and for the writers and creators on all these different shows from the past and present get the admiration they deserve. And those are the best episodes of each show I've reviewed this year. This isn't a straightforward list of which shows had the highest peaks, therefore were better. I don't think I have it in me to rank how much I loved each of these shows at this point in my YouTube channel, but I do have the tolerance to watch my least favorite episodes again and rank them for your sadistic viewing pleasure. Goodbye for now.